Hello and welcome to Gettable, AFL.com.au's home of trade, draft, free agency and contract news. I'm Riley Beveridge. This is Twomey. Cal, we have got a massive episode in store. We're going to be bringing back some of our old favourites in terms of the segments. We're also going to be looking ahead to Tasmania's list build after you broke the big story earlier this week around what some of their list concessions could be heading into their entry into the competition. But we want to start the show by looking ahead to this year's national draft because it does loom as an intriguing crop of players.
Yeah, last week's episode, Riley, was all about the trade and the free agency. Signings and big topics heading into the season. This week, we're going to talk about 10 of the top 10 draft prospects heading into the year as well. These are 10 guys that I'm keeping an eye on really closely heading into the start of the season. Not in order yet.
Not in order.
Don't hold me to that
Write
yet.
that down, not in order.
CDT, Cooper Duff Titler. He
Yes.
might well be the number one pick at this point if you did mark it down. He's right in the number one mix heading into the season. Athletically, very impressive. He's a ruckman from the Calder Cannons. He recently ran 2.97 seconds over 20. Did a level 21 yo-yo as well. This is some of his form from last year. I was at this game last season against the Dandenong Stingrays. He was awesome. He had 30 touches in that performance. He can really move around the ground. He's a point of difference as a taller guy, concentrating on his footy now after having a successful basketball junior career. So he's one that's definitely in that number one conversation. As is Willem Dersman. We know the name, we know the surname. This guy's a little bit different to his brothers and sister, obviously, Yaz. He's got a lot of traits and versatility to his game. He's been on the radar as an early pick for a couple of years now, playing for the Gippsland Power. This year, he's going to play in the midfield, some time forward, also in defence. Could he be that Nick Blakey type as well, that deliverer of halfback? His skills, as we see here, are really, really good for a taller, versatile type who can run and play. He's also got a basketball background. He loves his basketball too, but footy's where it's going to head for him. Dyson Sharp, the South Australian, looming as the best prospect at this stage out of SA. He's the ball midfielder who's ready to play. Has some Jason Horne-Francis qualities with his power around stoppages. Contested ball winner. Played league footy last year as a 17-year-old with Central District, so has that under his belt already. So he will come into this season with a lot of expectation that he'll dominate this year, and I really think he will. What
about some academy prospects? Because Gold Coast have a beauty in Zeke Uland.
Yeah, Zeke the Freak. There's nothing to doubt about Zeke the Freak. We saw all that last year.
Yeah.
His Errol Gouldness type of midfielder in this year's draft pool. He dominated last year. He can run. He played some VFL footy for the Gold Coast as well. He was really good in these performances for the Allies where he stood out playing as a bottom major. So he's managing his back injury at the moment. It's a week-to-week one. No real timeline on when he's back permanently playing. So faces a delayed start to the season. If he wasn't in the academy tied situation that he is, I think he'd be very much the favourite for the number one pick. Yeah. Being a Gold Coast Academy player probably changes that a little bit, but definitely the Suns have a ripper coming through in Zeke Uland. Daniel Annable, I'm calling him Annable Lecter. he's good with contested disposals and fava beans. The Brisbane Academy player averaged 28 disposals and 6 tackles in the Talent League last year playing for Brisbane's Academy. He can accumulate, also hurts with his touches too. So really consistent player who will again dominate for the Allies this season, I'd expect, and continue that stream of midfielders coming through for the Brisbane Academy. More stream of nicknames coming through as well. I've got a few more up my sleeve. I might wait for them next week. Josh Lindsay, a player from the Vic Country lineup and Geelong Falcons production line in recent years. Started in the under-17s grand final day game last year. So
he was best on ground, wasn't he?
He was one of them. He plays off a wing and half back and provides plenty of run and distribution with the ball. So 182 centimetre prospect, averaged 17 disposals last year at CTL level. I think he's one that clubs and recruiters definitely have their eye on as being a potential riser.
What about Liam Heatherton? Because we love a key forward on this show. Everyone loves a key forward in terms of the draft. Yeah. What can you tell us about him?
Well, every draft needs a couple of key forwards to come through. That was the beauty of last year, wasn't it? We saw a few of these taller types emerge and strengthen the pool. Liam Heatherton probably put his name on the map last year in under-17s futures game, where he really showed his stuff as an exciting, taller prospect. He's playing for the Murray Bush Rangers. He also played for the Allies this year, but he's got some good ability in the air and also some X factor to stand up in some key moments of games. So I think he's definitely among the key forwards to watch.
Max King, we spoke a little bit about him last week, Sydney Academy prospect. Reminds me a little bit of Isaac Heaney as well.
Yeah, I love this guy. I think there's a lot to like about him. He's a bit taller than Isaac Heaney. He's an overhead marker. athletic. He's an athletic freak that is headed to the Swans' way as a member of their academy. He kicked 6 goals on the weekend, so he's in form. Kicked 6 against the Giants Academy and really stood out. So he's got all the traits as an early pick. If you looked at him just athletically, there's so much to like. His marking really stands out, and he's someone who I think could really pop. So I've been watching him closely since the end of last year, and I think he's definitely one that, along with Noah Chamberlain and also Lockie Carmichael, the Swans have a really good hand of academy boys coming through.
They certainly do. Noah Hibbins-Hargraves.
Yeah, a silky half-forward wingman from Dandenong Stingrays. He'll go through the inside midfield role at different times this year, but his weapons at this point are on the outside. He played 16 games, kicked 23 goals last year for the Stingrays and has some real movement and dash. So he's another player who I think, given his skill level, I think that'll stand out. The funny part about this year's draft is it's hard to say exactly who the best pure midfielder is and that guy that can go inside, outside and deliver. So I think that job or that role is up for grabs and he could be a contender for that. Louis Emmett's a very different player rounding out this top 10. Oakley's best prospect this year. We know the Oakley form line in Victoria is so strong. He kicked 4 goals in a game last year as a ruckman. He also had 28 touches in a game. So that just shows that he can get around the ground and use his running strength. Athletically really strong. He comes from a rowing background. So getting around the ground and creating an outlet at different points is important for him. 199 centimetres, so he's going to have to spend some time forward at different points. But that's Louis Emmett, and he'll lead along with Cooper Duff-Tytler, the Vic Metro Ruck Brigade heading into the season. So
that's your top 10. Any unlucky to miss?
Well, there's a few unlucky to miss that I've thrown up in that scenario. Sam Cumming, Matt Leray. Another player that I'm keeping an eye on as well, just a bit of a watch, is a familiar name, Javan Filippo. Just keep an eye on Jev because a jack-in-the-box half-forward midfielder, takes high marks, can find the ball, damaging with his turn of speed. He's actually an elite decathlete. So he's got some amazing athletic capabilities and has done that at national level at juniors coming through. So wanting to follow his brother Mateus, of course, into the AFL. Started very well. Last week had 31 touches in a game and 9 marks. So yeah, someone to keep an eye on is Jev Filippo.
Okay, well, this is your 10 to watch in terms of the national draft for 2025. Let's head back to the desk, Cal, because I want to chat through Tasmania list bill. I don't think these guys will get out of the top 20, so I'm sure that they won't be coming into contract in 2027 when we think Tasmania is going to enter into the conversation. But this is where we find our cover story for the week. We brought this in last year, and it is Riley Sanders fending off Tassie. Can the Dogs hold Riley Sanders as the Devil's loom, Cal?
Yeah, a couple of other stories that we'll obviously get into the 2025 draft prospects you must know. We're about to get to inside Oscar Allen's career-defining decision, and Port halfback is keen to stay. But let's talk about fending off Tassie and what it means for the Dogs, but also other clubs as well, because Tasmania, as we revealed earlier this week, the AFL is proposing its number of list rules for Tasmania's startup and is preparing them to get to the point of mid-season actually announcing and revealing them. Let's get to the first batch of rules that we're likely to see come through from an AFL point of view. The first one is massive. 10 first-round picks over 3 drafts, including 6 in the 2027 draft, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. Some of those with caveats to trade. Access to uncontracted players as free agents across 2 trade periods. So that means that if you're out of contract, you're essentially a free agent around the competition across 2 years. A sign-on bonus fund of up to $1 million to help attract players. 17-year-olds in the mini draft, that is a huge fill-up for them because we know what GWS did with that one. And multiple early selections in rookie and mid-season drafts. So a little bit further on that group of list build rules.
Yeah.
The interesting part for me is, one, the mini draft is huge.
Yeah.
Because the Giants spawned 7 first-round picks from that process a couple of years ago when they come through the draft pool, obviously. 7 out of 4 picks. I don't think Tasmania will get 4, but they could get 2. And that still will be enough to make this mini draft, this bidding war, erupt over these young talents.
What about no pick 1? Because that was what's fascinating to me. You mentioned there the 6 first-round picks in 2027, but no pick 1 is part of that.
Yeah, I was surprised at that. That's at this stage.
Yeah, could change. All of this is subject to change.
Yeah, there's still some tinkering to go, but throughout this whole process, and these rules were first developed in 2022, have been tinkered and had different iterations since then multiple times. As it stands now, no number 1 pick. I think they should have the number 1 pick. for that draft, because you feel like that draft is going to be so massive. There's so much that comes with having the number 1 pick. I think that's important. So I'd add number 1 in and probably change 13 and 11 and maybe push 13 and 11 back to 15.
Yep.
Add pick 1 in and change it up that way. So that's very interesting. And the free agents across 2 years, that was unexpected because clubs and also agents themselves were thinking that it might just be 1 year. So get your player through to 2027 and then they can be a free agent. If it's 2 years, which is the way it's tracking, that gives them a double bite at it.
Yeah, okay. What about some more list rules? Because you mentioned a whole host of more, including access to father-sons, Cal.
Yeah, they'll have access to them, but in the Nick Riewoldt case, Nick Riewoldz's sons, for instance, would still have the option to join St Kilda.
Yes.
So it's not as if they will just get priority over any other club. So don't stress on that front. I still think the Riewolds, if they're good enough, would be playing for the Saints. But access to Tasmanian father-son selections, access to Tasmania's academy zone, we know that'll come in, and eventually they'll have to pay for them under the academy bidding system. Priority pre-listing to 8 to 10, 17-year-old prospects ahead of their 2027 draft year. So for prospects born in the first 6 months of the year can really allow them to manage to sign those good group of players in a longer period. 2026 draftees as well who might sit out of the draft if you're from Tasmania, and more selections at the start of round 2 onwards. So that's a pretty big group of the 10 list build rules that will shape what they do.
How does it change who they're going to target, you reckon, Cal? Well, the mascot was revealed yesterday as well, wasn't
the mascot. That's like first iteration of the mascot. Who's it change if they target? Well, I was put
your devil's hat on.
If I was putting my devil's hat, no, I'll take that off. Look, I think there's some options there for them to go, and they can go with a whole different heap of ways. And look, everyone's about who they can actually get, so don't bore us, get to the chorus. Here's a few of the guys who I think will have to be on their radar. Riley Sanders, Colby McKercher, we know those guys are coming through from the 2023 draft.
Yep.
James Leake as well. Josh Dunkley I've put there as well. Tom Green, Errol Gould and Sam Durham. And then the 2024-2025 first round picks will all be eligible as free agents if they hold off signing. Sanders and McKercher are the big ones, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
And look, Sanders is going to have to make a call on this at some point this year if he wants to hold off. I think he'd be keen to do and open to doing an extra year at the moment. So far, the Dogs have been open to doing longer than that.
Yep,
so
as they would be.
As they would be. But having 2 years means that he could still do 2 more years and still be eligible for this Tasmania assault. Colby McKercher the same. So I think there's going to be a real push to get one of these guys back there, if not both. And Sanders, if you speak to people in Tasmania who know him well, will be someone who will have to listen to it. Yeah.
What about Josh Dunkley? Because he was an interesting name that you threw up before.
Well, he'll be 31 at the end of 2028. He's already won 2 premierships at 2 different clubs.
Yep.
He might have done it all. He might have won a second premiership with Brisbane by then, maybe even a third. Is he the type of player that can take on the Chad Corns, Luke Power, James McDonald type of role?
How old did you say he'd be at the time?
31.
Okay.
Yeah. So he might be right in the hitting zone to take a couple of years, be a leader, set the standards.
Yep.
Comes from country Victoria. So I think he's someone that they should be targeting, and I doubt that he re-signs beyond that in the next year or two, having obviously joined on that big deal. Tom Green, you've spoken to him around this as well.
He's so open to the fact that he's signed a free agency deal through to 2027, so he becomes a free agent then. Not that it matters anymore because they will all be free agents, but he becomes a free agent, can assess the market in 2027. He's spoken so openly around being like, yeah, come and chase me. I'll see what I'll do. I don't know what I'm going to be thinking in 2027. So he's going to be one of those guys that could be the best player in the competition by the time they roll around and they're ready to enter the competition.
Errol Goulden's a free agent 2028, Sam Durham the same. I think those two, if they remain unsigned beyond then, will obviously get really good offers. And Seymour Sam Durham from country Victoria. These are the type of characters and personalities I think that Tasmania will be targeting, those type of guys that maybe haven't always lived and grown up in metropolitan cities who might be open to a change. And they're the 24-25 first rounders. Well, we just wait and see now. If you're in this year's draft, you hold off for a while and back yourself in to get a really good deal when it comes to Tasmania. But there's no doubt that the inflation rate, the Tasmania inflation rate, because of these list rules and the money that they're going to have, throw in the fact they've got more than $1 million in terms of a sign-on fee. Yeah, they're in a good spot. And particularly, there's still a lot to go in terms of the Tasmania Footy Club going through its list manager position roles at the moment. Derek Hine from Collingwood, Todd Patterson from Melbourne, right in the mix for that, as we've previously reported. So Lots of different avenues for them to strike gold. The 17-year-old mini draft is one, and then the 17-year-old access is crucial. That's if you look at Gold Coast v the Giants. The Giants got Jeremy Cameron, Dylan Shield, Adam Treloar out of that. Gold Coast didn't have the same talent pool to pick from.
Plenty to get through for Tasmania over the next couple of years. Some big decisions looming for the new expansion club. Plenty more still to come on Gettable as well.
Hey, it's Tom Green, and you're watching Gettable with Twomey and Riley Beveridge.
All right, Cal, I reckon it's time to bring back one of our favourite segments. For the first time in 2025, it is Quick Fix.
Bang.
This is where we run through a whole series of topics very quickly and get to the bottom of it. We'll start with free agent flurry.
Say that quickly.
It's a tough one. Will the weekend impact any free agents' decisions? Jeez, I can't get it out of there.
Davies Uniacke, I expect to stay at North Melbourne. We spoke about this last week. I think that's the strong sense of where things sit with LDU, and that's where everyone views it. I think it could still take a little bit of time, but I expect him to re-sign with North Melbourne on that 7-year offer. Rival clubs just don't see him as the type to want to take up the big money, high-profile, high-pressure club change. TDK, absolutely live, as we revealed last week, that he's considering St Kilda's play. So that one, he was fantastic on the weekend. I think he probably showed why you're offering a very, very big deal. He's the best player in that defeat. Don't think that'll be impacting his decision-making process, the performance, but in the end, the money might be too good to refuse. Oscar Allen. This is one where I look at it and think, this is as much on him now, having options. Does he look at the Tom Barrass move in Barrass chasing a second flag with Hawthorn and think he'd like to do the same and chase a flag somewhere else, given that West Coast is still a fair way down the track from doing that? And are the Eagles still some way off to get to that sort of point of contention? Brisbane and the Hawks are definitely in. Collingwood, as I reported last week, has interest as well. So they are a watch. Keep an eye on the Magpies in the Oscar Allen chase. All will be contenders going forward as well for the flag. Nick's always going to be at Collingwood, so they're always going to be in contention.
It's interesting that those three players you just brought up, TDK, LDU, Oscar Allen, all part of pretty disappointing losses on the weekend as well.
Yes.
So I wonder if that makes a decision.
Someone from a win was Brandon Starcevic.
Yes.
The concussion clearly complicates things. He's had short and long-term offers on the table since last year. We reported that earlier this season. It could change how clubs approach things and whether they wait until a little bit deeper into the season to check how he's tracking. And Kane Farrell as well. Talks are open there with Port Adelaide. I believe he's keen on staying at Port Adelaide and at Alberton. And that'll pick up in coming weeks, but likely to be a restricted free agent. Don't think it's going to get to that. All right, insights. Selection calls that had list managers looking at their phones and going, what's happening there?
We did speak about this last week. Round one always throws up a few, and I was interested by Ed Allen being dropped from that Collingwood side. His performances back half of last year, and particularly in that final round defeat, were really strong, had a really good pre-season, dropped from the side after their opening round loss to Collingwood. Lockie Sullivan comes into that team. So I wonder if clubs start thinking, wow, is there a position for Oscar Allen in our side? Because it doesn't look like there's one at Collingwood at the moment. Neil Erasmus, another one, former top 10 pick, left out of Fremantle's team, given the amount of injuries they had. Hayden Young, Shea Bolton, Nat Fyfe, Michael Walters, all out of that side. The fact he still couldn't get a game, I wonder if clubs are looking there and thinking, could we take a risk on someone that's got a lot of potential and showed that throughout his under-18s career as well. Leclerc missed out at the Giants. He doesn't look like he's got a place in that side. Had some interest last year. Still contracted for 2025. I can't see him staying at the football club beyond 2025. So Leclerc one to watch as well, given he didn't play for the Giants.
Brisbane another watch as well in the Leclerc chase. Round one wonders, the 2024 Super Draft debuts. Look at that, number 16, my man.
The Super Draft was on show on the weekend, wasn't it? Sam Lawler, rising star, he was absolutely fantastic in that Thursday night victory over Carlton. And then Murphy Reid, as you said, your man, 4 goals in 4 minutes, was it? He was absolutely fantastic. Levi Ashcroft, Finn O'Sullivan, Xavier Lindsay. I thought Luke Traynor and Harry Armstrong's games in that Richmond win were really underrated as well, particularly Luke Traynor. He spent a lot of last year being a potential top 5 pick. But how's that goal from Murphy Reid? That was fantastic. Sam Davidson, great as well. I want to throw one at you though, Cal. For the next 10 years of their careers, you get the choice between Isaac Kako and Nick Watson. Who are you taking?
No, I'm not answering that. They're both very, very good and pretty similar. I don't think Kako has the aerial.
Yeah, that's the only tipping point for me.
Doesn't have the aerial.
Early auditions targets face suitors in early matchups, Cal.
Yes, big weekend of auditions coming up for some key players. Sam Draper takes on Adelaide, so that's a rehearsal potentially. Adelaide's trying to re-sign Riley O'Brien, which Josh Gablich wrote in Inside Trading last week, but clearly has eyes on Draper as a free agent as well. I think ideally, as we spoke about, he wants to stay, but there hasn't been an offer made yet, and that hasn't come and won't come at least for a few more weeks. So just, I think, hold your horses on where that one sits.
Yeah.
I still think the most likely outcome is he stays, but still a lot to play out, and they play each other on Saturday at the G, so he can boost his deal with a good performance. Fremantle doesn't have as much money as West Coast to play with, clearly, in its chase for Chad Warner, but Chad heads west to face the Dockers on Sunday.
Going to be an interesting game, that one.
He's been really good to start the season, and then the Swans have the bye after that. So you'd think this little early season lull for the Swans will be a time and a period for him to think a little bit more about his decision, get the lowdown potentially on where both WA clubs sit amongst it all. And Desire Wanganeen-Miller has the big long-term offer from Adelaide, which we revealed last week on Gettable. Adelaide were pretty good on the weekend against his Saints. Port and then St Kilda, of course, as well. St Kilda have put offers to him too, as they, of course, would, to try and lock him in. He's going to take his time with this decision. I've had Port as the favourite if he does choose to head back to South Australia or seek a trade back home. But if Adelaide plays more like they did on the weekend, then they will be a new destination club because it's fun, exciting. They've done a lot of hard work over the rebuild. But Port Adelaide still is going to be in it because there's that uncertainty with Miles Bergman as well and what that could mean for give and take. But still, I'm not saying he's leaving. I think he's pretty happy at St Kilda. It's just a matter if the want to get home is really, really strong. Blues Clues. Is Carlton's list maxed out?
Well, they don't have much flexibility, and their results on the weekend, their performance on the weekend was really poor. Don't have a first-round pick this year. Don't have their own second-round pick. Their first pick, as things stand, will be Brisbane's second-rounder. And last year, that was pick 39 last year. So it could be a pick in the 40s, given the amount of academy bids there's going to be this year if they don't move somewhere. Tom De Koning's the big free agent, and that's their way of potentially getting a first-round pick if he does opt to depart. As you've reported numerous times, 7-year offer on the table for him at the Blues. But if he does take up one of those big lucrative offers elsewhere, they will get a first-round pick for him. That could be their way back into the draft. They've also got a lot of players that they've got to make a decision whether or not they stick or twist on that are coming towards the end of their deals. So Jack Silvani's one, Jesse Motlop's another out of contract this year. Mitch McGovern, Brody Kemp had interest from St Kilda last year, did Brody Kemp, and George Hewitt. These are all players coming towards the end of their deals. Do they stick or twist on those players? Do they look at some of them and think, can we get some picks in for those guys? And then what can they do with those picks to try and find a bit more flexibility, find a bit more cap room? They've got Tom De Koning this year. They've got Sam Walsh next year. It's a really intriguing season and 12 months for Carlton. And it just wasn't the way for them to start their season on Thursday night.
That's right.
Must-dos, what the round one performances proved.
Well, it proved that Harley Reid needs some help around him. I think the criticism's been a bit overwhelming. It's like it was a one-man game, really. He has got opponents that also didn't play that well, and he's 19. So, but does he see that coming at West Coast in terms of the help and reinforcements and assistance around him, or does he think another club can offer that, or will other clubs promise it to him as part of their offer and pitch? Many clubs think that it's live this year, that he could look at what it does, and what the Eagles do this year could impact that too. But then the alternative is that potentially an early recontracting for a couple of years could actually ease the pressure and ease the discussion. So still so much to play out on the Reid case. What else was proved over the weekend? West Coast needs a ruckman. It was a few weeks ago we said Darcy Cameron was in their sights as one of the potential options. They need a ruck, and sooner the better. They need a big guy who can compete and help that midfield. And just last one, I know we only kicked a goal on the weekend from a couple of disposals, but round one proved to me, just again watching him, that Logan Morris is one of the best draft picks over the last 3 years. He was picked 31. Brisbane went into that draft knowing they had to pick a tall, so their market is tiny, basically, and they landed with Logan Morris, who come out last year, played 19 games, won a premiership, kicked 24 goals. He's 19. There's been talks over his contract extension, sort of, it's open, but it's still letting it play out over the first few weeks to get a better assessment of his value, I'd say. But it'd be interesting what he'd be worth on the open market as a 19-year-old key forward who's doing what he's doing, because one of the great picks of the last few years is Logan Morris.
He's been fantastic for that football club over the last 12 to 18 months. Now, Cal, got a lot of feedback last week around the intro.
Yes,
in particular.
Star Wars.
The Star Wars intro. We went Star Wars. A lot of people sent us some recommendations as to how we could improve. A lot of people sent us some recommendations of how we could change Star Wars movies going forward. So this is Attack of the Crows. Justin Reid, his eyes on Sam Draper and Desire Wanganeen Miller. Return of the Jackson.
Yeah.
Luke Jackson, Tim Lamb looking over Luke Jackson there.
Rubbish,
Melbourne
you reckon?
trying to get him back potentially. And what about this one? The Phantom Draft. There's you.
Yeah,
Episode 1.
Good feedback. That was the worst Star Wars movie by a long way, by the way. Shocker. Absolute rubbish. And also, I've made something. This is my Kako clapper. This is me.
It would have been going nuts
This is me
early in that game
the
on
media
Friday
box
night.
in that first goal. These need to be at Marvel soon. Look at it. How is this not a money spinner? All right, I'm going to clap my way off until next week's show.
All right, plenty more still to come on AFL.com.au this week. Keep your eyes peeled for inside trading. We'll be back same time, same place next week on Gettable.
Let's go.